Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brothers and sisters, I'm in a mortuary of Dar Salam Masjid in West London right now with brother Abu Bakr. The reason I'm here is because this is one of the only masajid in West London, one of the very few masajid in the UK period that are actually doing the ghusls for the COVID-19 people who have passed away, where they're actually doing the ghusl, where they're actually washing the body. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of miseducation and misinformation with regards to how to go about washing the dead bodies of those who have passed away as a result of COVID-19. And some people have maybe done things not in accordance to the sunnah or whatever way. But this place right here has actually put their people at risk and gone out of their way to actually make sure that they wash the bodies properly, so they give these people their final passage before they're put inside of their grave. Does that make sense? I have here with me brother Abu Bakr. And the reason I'm here today is because the masjid is actually having some serious difficulty with regards to actually catering to the demand of the dead bodies. Does that make sense? And there's something that you can do, inshallah ta'ala, in a second to help. But before I explain to you what you could do, I just want brother Abu Bakr to explain to you from himself, because he's been actually the main guy here washing the bodies almost every day or every other day since this epidemic has kind of outbroken. So if you can explain, how dire has the situation been?
Well, brother, it's very serious, alhamdulillah. But the problem with the Muslims we are having is a lot of Muslims are dying up, and there's less places where the washing is happening. So majority of the West London people are coming here for the ghusl. That's why we're having a lot of people coming in here for the ghusl. So sometimes even we might tell them you have to wait for a few days because of the situation we're having.
And what kind of numbers are we talking?
Depends. Some weeks we are talking about 6, 7, 8 a weekly basis. Sometimes we have taken more than that. So sometimes even we cannot, because of the situation of the mortuary we are having and the capacity we cannot pick up. We have to tell them to wait. That's why we have it.
And today you mentioned there's a few you have to pick up today, right?
We need to pick up 3 today. 3, 1 child and 2 adults. And at the moment, we're just waiting for the paperwork. Then from there, we have to pick up. But because of the situation, as I explained to you, because of the ambulance, we cannot pick them in one go. So we have to go back each and every time.
And if I'm not mistaken, one of the brothers told me that last week you had 7 in one day.
Yes. We have to go all the way. Most of them were going to Garden of Peace. 3 of them were going to Garden of Peace. So 3 in one go. Only Friday we had 3 of them going to Garden of Peace. So, but before that, I think we had more than that week, because we had 3 in one day, and then the other days we have 2 or 1 or 2 every day. So we more than 7.
So as you can see, brothers and sisters, the situation here is very, very serious, okay? When you're dealing with 3 bodies a day, when you're dealing with 7 bodies a day, if you don't have the resources, they're going to really struggle to actually make sure they get the bodies washed and buried in time. And as we know from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, is that you don't delay the burial, you make it happen as quick as possible. Now, inshallah ta'ala, I want you to follow me outside, and I'm going to explain to you why it's actually taken so long and why it's so difficult for them to actually keep up with the demand of the people that are actually dying and the bodies that need to be washed. Brothers and sisters, this ambulance right here is the reason why the masjid is struggling to keep up with the demand of the funerals of the COVID-19 deceased. Let me explain to you. You see, when you're dealing with 3, 4 or 7 bodies a day that you have to pick up from the hospital, bring to the masjid, wash, take to the graveyard, and you're doing that to 4 or 7 bodies a day, that can be a really, really, really huge strain on the brothers here, to the point where they're not actually able to keep up with the demand. Why? Because you see, this ambulance is only built to be able to hold 1 body. Just push this in. Only 1 body can be put on here. Does that make sense? You can't put more than 1 body on here. Not just that, as you can see, this is quite high. You cannot easily put 1 body into this ambulance. You need about 3 or 4 people to help carry the body. And that's very, very, very difficult when there's only 1 person who's actually willing to do the washing here. The brother mentioned that for about 2-3 weeks, he was the only person washing the bodies because everyone else was too scared to wash the bodies. So he's 1 person washing the bodies. How is he going to get the bodies into the ambulance when it's so high? Does that make sense? So the masjid here, actually, because this is the masjid that we do a lot of da'wah with, They mentioned for a long time that they've been needed to fundraise for a new ambulance. Does that make sense? Anyway, now having to deal with this ambulance due to the demand, wallah, it's even more essential and necessary. Does that make sense? I mean, imagine a lot of the bodies are being buried in Gardens of Peace in East London. This is in West London. So they go into what? St. Pancras, Charing Cross, West Middlesex, Eden Hospital, 4 different hospitals in different parts of the city, coming back here, bringing the body here, go back, get another body, go back, get another body, wash the bodies, and then they have to one by one take them all the way to East London to bury them. People's bodies are going to be delayed in being buried. And that's not from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Does that make sense? So it's essential that we get the money ASAP for this ambulance. And what better time to get it than in the month of Ramadan? So you can kind of get some kind of a scale of the kind of reward. The Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned that if a person, he partakes in the funeral, as in praying the funeral prayer, and then the burying of the body, they get the reward of 2 qirats. A qirat, the least of which is the size of Mount Uhud. The mountain of Uhud is a massive mountain. And the qirat, they vary in terms of their size. The smallest of which is the size of Mount Uhud. And Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he communicated this from the Prophet ﷺ, that if you partake in the janazah prayer, you get 1 qirat. If you do the janazah prayer and you bury the body, you get 2. The smallest of which will be the size of the mountain of Uhud. When Abdullah ibn Umar, he heard this, he wanted to get it verified. So he sent Khabbab to the house of Aisha radiallahu anha, to Aisha, to go and verify. Did the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam really say this? And whilst Ibn Umar sent him to Aisha to find out, he picked up some pebbles that were inside of the masjid. And he started to roll them over in his hand like this, waiting for Khabbab to come back with the news. When Khabbab came back and he said, it's true, Aisha verified that Abu Hurairah is right. The Prophet ﷺ said that the reward is 2 qirat. Ibn Umar, he took these pebbles and he threw them onto the floor. And he said, we've missed out on many qirats. We've missed out on many opportunities to get this massive reward because we didn't help with the funeral proceedings. Does that make sense? Now, you might not be able to come here and pray the funeral prayer. You might not be able to go to the burial and bury the body. But what you're doing is that you're going to help pay for the vehicle that's going to make the burial possible in the first place. Does that make sense? So you, inshallah, have some share in that illustrious reward. Does that make sense? If you can contribute £10, £5, £100, £1,000, £2,000 towards this, you might not be able to pray each individual janazah, but you get the reward of every single body that's washed and transported to the graveyard from this masjid for as long as the ambulance will remain, and that could be decades. Imagine you're dead and buried, but your reward is still carrying on, inshallah ta'ala. So these are opportunities. The believer doesn't lose out on these opportunities. Please, brothers and sisters, donate generously at the link below and make this possible. Let's give our brothers and sisters who have passed away due to this disease a admirable, farewell. A correct farewell, a prophetic, traditional, sunnah-based farewell, where the body is washed and is buried on time, and make it easy on the management here. Wallahi, people aren't doing this. They're scared. They're being selfless out here. They're putting themselves at risk to help wash the bodies. Make it easy for them. Donate the link below. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum.